Hello Guild Wars 2 gamers, Mukluk here. Today is July 17th, and we've got a little bit of Guild Wars 2 news. They posted late yesterday, did you call it Mesmer, Troubadour, Elementalist, Evoker, and Thief, Antiquary? Elite specs were revealed in the announcement trailer for Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity. Starting next week, dive into 3 new specs weekly with news on Wednesdays and live streams Fridays at noon PT. So, couple of things. First off, a lot of people are like, why didn't they do the elite spec names at the end of the countdown? And to that I say, I freaking agree with you. I love what I am seeing for the upcoming expansion, but I am allowed to, at the same time, be quite peeved at how they handled that. Yeah, check out these countdowns. 3 days until we don't tell you what this is. 1 day until we don't tell you what this is. Place your wagers, Tyrion. The final reveal of the new Elite Spec looms. And then the next day, they told us nothing about any of this. I'm quite cross. However, let's move on to what we've got. All right, so they tweeted the thing about 3 of the classes, right? So what do we know about these? Let's go bit by bit. First of all, a lot of people are going, what the heck's a Troubadour? I thought it was a bard. A Troubadour is basically a bard. My first MMO was EverQuest. In EverQuest, when a bard hit max level, they became a Troubadour. A Troubadour is just another word often used in video games. It's just like bard and minstrel, musician. Sometimes they can be called a dirge if they do offensive music and it damages the enemy. Those are all words that I have heard interchange with the word bard. So I'm not really surprised to hear Troubadour. I even mentioned it as a possibility in previous videos. The Elementalist Evoker. Evoker was recently added to World of Warcraft, so a lot of people know it from there. It has been used in other forms of media as well. An Evoker is just someone who evokes. Sometimes it's just someone that shoots fire out of their hands. However, Elementalist already shoots fire out of their hands, so I don't actually know what the Evoker is going to do, but we know it has the Firefox thing. And the Thief, Antiquary. And I've got a few thoughts about all of these things. I'm going to share them, and we're going to see what everybody thinks about these. So, let's start with the Troubadour. So, let's just say it's a bard. What does a bard often do in video games and movies and fantasy media, besides seducing everything it comes across? Usually buffs. Usually a bard in the video games that I have played, Dungeons & Dragons, EverQuest, Pathfinder, things like that, as very good buffs around it. You know, boost to skill checks in D20 games, boost to attack rolls, boost to damage rolls. In EverQuest, it was kind of a jack of all trades. It had access to a bit of healing, a bit of snare, a bit of kiting, a bit of tanking, a bit of DPS, and it could kind of fill in if you were missing anything and do it almost as good, but not quite as good as the original. It also had some really nice utility, like it had a song that they could play to get insane run speed out of combat, things like that. They essentially could fill in any missing gap in your party. If your healer had to go, the bard could step in for a bit. If your tank had to go, the bard could step in for a bit, stuff like that. And they could have any one song playing at a time. Now, this game, the buff system is boons. And there have in the past been buffs that were not boons, that were unique. Such as Ranger Spirits, Warrior Banners, things like that. Used to be buffs that stacked with boons. So every 10-man group had a warrior with banners, every 10-man group had a ranger doing spirits, and then the other buffs, the other boons were covered on top of that. However, they got rid of those. They made a point of getting rid of the unique buffs on spirits and the unique buffs on banners because it was things were getting out of hand and they wanted to simplify them. And power creep is still going. Power creep is still a problem. We've got classes doing 50k DPS now, and they used to be the max was like 30, and before that it was 20. So power creep is still a thing, despite the fact that they did that. So I do not believe that Troubadour is going to have a unique damage influencing buff that's going to affect the whole party. I also am curious, how is it going to buff them in a way that Chrono can't already? Chronomancer is one of the best buffers in the game, and Mesmer has Chrono. So, to make this thing stand out as a buff bot, they would have to kind of rework the boon system and give everyone else less access to boons. And I haven't heard any mention of a boon system rework. I feel like that would be something that they would advertise on the box cover. So, I don't know. Those are all of the things I have seen bards do in media, in other fantasy games and stuff like that. I don't know what this one's going to do. Now, what we do know is they are going to get a lute, banjo, ukulele, guitar, and they are also going to get a... Just a minute. Flute. So, they've got at least 2 instruments. Maybe more. Which also reminds me of... I should have had this picture prepared already. Just a moment, and here it is. Another game I played for about a year, which was Black Desert Online. Black Desert Online has a character called the Shy, which is spelled S-H-A-I. It's like a halfling girl, and she is a support class. And her ultimate weapon is a set of musical instruments. She has a lute, she has a flute, and she has hand drums. And depending on the song that she is doing, each of them are better for certain songs, and she will pull those out, kind of take a step back from the combat, and just ba 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 ba, and all the DPS are like, whoa, I love this song! And they're just like, baby shark! And then they just go crazy. So, you know, it could be something like this. Maybe you're going to get kits. Maybe F1 pulls out the guitar, F2 pulls out the flute, F3 pulls out the hand drums. Maybe it's completely different. Maybe your F1 Shatter is going to now be like, you know, the song of my people, and you just bam, 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 bam. You know, maybe your Shatters is just going to be do a song for a second. But the question remains, what is the song going to do? Chronomancer already does boons exceptionally well. Is it just going to do damage? Is it going to do healing? I don't know. I do not know. Maybe some new unique buff. Maybe they're going to make buffs harder to obtain, and then this will then be easier to obtain to make this look better by contrast. I have no idea. But these are all just thoughts I had when I see Troubador. Next up, Elementalist is getting Evoker. Just the name Evoker just makes me think, okay, they're going to shoot fire out of a different spot on their body. They're going to have flaming kneecaps. I have no idea. However, we've got this. So just a second here. But by the way, I hate this thing. I don't know why she's in this video. Hold on, I'm gonna rant for a second. You guys are gonna like it, okay? We've got this person who everybody's going, oh my god, offhand scepter. That's clearly a torch or a focus, or they're just left-handed and this is an offhand pistol. So this person shoots spray of fire, it misses. It freaking goes, and dude, it just hits the ground 1 foot away. So first of all, pathetic. Then she's like, ah, and just and you can see she goes crazy. And then I'm pretty sure this is a necromancer swinging a scepter. And look, she swings, and boom, this person's crotch explodes. Okay, so deadly attack, but it wasn't a very threatening villain in the first place. Anyway, every frame in this trailer with this being confuses me, because it always just seems like there's like no point. Anyway, all right, so we got right here the Evoker. The Evoker has a tiny floating Firefox there, and they're out of combat. They are out of combat, okay? The Scrapper gyros, when you're out of combat, the function gyro floats like near your body. Unless it's on cooldown, in which case it's not there. It's invisible. It's just like a fun thing. So I'm immediately reminded of that. So this thing is available for use. It's not currently on cooldown. It's floating there. And then there is another thing here where you can see it is floating right here. Now, I do not think it suddenly got larger. I think that this is just a different camera angle, okay? So we've got this thing here. I just think they stuck the camera really, really big up next to this thing. It's kind of like if I were to go in-game and I showed you one of my miniatures, and then I just shrunk my character, I can make it look like it's massive. All right, that's just a trick of the camera. The thing didn't change in size, okay? This is not something that is incredibly new or difficult. I think that it is just the camera got really close to the fox. That's it. So we got this thing floating in the air, and that's it. That's all we know about that thing, is it's there. So, possibilities. One, could it be a combat pet? As in, when you enter combat, maybe you cast some spells and start juicing it up, and then it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it starts fighting, and maybe you have to reset it. There was a class called the Summoner that was that never made it into Guild Wars 1, that was going to be in Guild Wars Utopia, which was the canceled 4th expansion of Guild Wars 1, was going to bring the Chronomancer and the Summoner into the game. The Summoner was supposed to have, like, combine different elements into a pet and then keep it rolling. Like, stuff would expire, you would add new stuff. The earth would expire, you would add water. The water would expire, you'd add air. So you'd have this amalgamation elemental thing that you would just try to kind of keep rolling and it would run over enemies while you were, working on maintaining this creature. Maybe it's like that. Maybe this fox starts out like itty bitty, and then you start channeling different things into it, and like it's just going crazy while you're just like working on buffing it, and it's like a weird, unique pet class. Could be cool. I would love that. Next possibility, is it a familiar? Okay, what's the difference between a familiar and a pet class? In most D&D Pathfinder type stuff, a familiar is very fragile. Maybe it's like a bird that sits on your shoulder, or like a rabbit or a frog or something. It doesn't go out and fight hand to hand, in rare occasion. Maybe you have it drop a grenade on the enemy, but it doesn't go out and like fight hand to hand usually. Familiar is often like a channeling focus. Like you charge up the spell, Burning Touch, and then the familiar goes over and delivers that spell. When you're a little bit back and safe and stuff like that. So maybe it's like a channeling focus, maybe you cast a spell through the pet, or through the familiar, and it's enhanced in some way. So maybe like you could hit the 5 button on your weapon, or you could hit F1 to activate the familiar, then hit 5, and then it does something much flashier. Kind of like how an Untamed will do an ambush, with just like an energized version of their one skill. Maybe this thing, you hit it, and then the next button you use is just juiced. In that situation, maybe it just sits there and it's just a visual effect and it doesn't do anything. Maybe it's like a gyro, and you send it out to an area and it emits a field and it does something in that area. Or like gyros and jade spheres both kind of share that behavior. You send them out to a spot, they do a thing, and then they disappear and they're on cooldown for a while. These are all just ideas in my head. I don't actually know what it's going to do. Also, we've only seen the Fire Fox. We've only seen the Mozilla version. And the icon for it is a Fire Fox's head. We've not seen a Water Fox, Air Fox, or Earth Fox. So, another question, is this related to Element? When the Elementalist is in Fire, Fire Fox. When they go into Earth, do they get an Earth Buffalo? When they go into Earth, do they get a water, do they get a Water Snake? Is Air an Air Otter? I don't know. Is it always a fox, and it's always on fire, and then whatever element you have out, you have access to that element plus fire? Again, total spitball in here. I'm not sure. But everything we've seen, including the class icon, is a fire fox. Nothing to do with the other elements yet. So maybe that indicates something? I don't know. That's all I got for the Evoker. The last thing is the Antiquary, which for some reason is the deck of cards. Now, an Antiquary, you know what, I'm gonna let Google do this rather than me try to explain it. Define Antiquary. All right, an Antiquary, here we go. A person who studies or collects antiques or antiquities. They belong in a museum. It's Indiana Jones, It's kind of like an archaeologist. So basically, thieves have realized they've been missing a complete market. They've been so busy casting steel on living people, they forgot there's more dead people than living people. And now they're tapping into that untapped market and stealing from the dead, I guess. And the only thing we know about the Antiquary is in this right here. That's it. You got it. You just saw all of it. You all right? We've got the Antiquary Indiana Jones here. He has what seems to be a pet skrit who is digging up tons of treasure. That's it. I don't get how this is related to the deck of cards, unless, I don't know. Because we were so sure it was like a gambler or a luck mechanic, right? And then we've got this guy, which is fine, but it just seems like it's two different things. There's like the gamble luck idea, and then there's the, Tomb Raider idea. So we got this guy here, and he apparently has a ability that makes it look like he's got a summon that's digging up treasure. All right, I have a few thoughts. One is Darkest Dungeon had a class called the Antiquarian. The Antiquarian in that game, just to really TLDR this, it was a weaker character that had insane magic find. So if you did a run with Antiquarians instead of like the Crusader or the Jester or the other characters, the Antiquarians were harder to kill with, but they came back with a lot more money. And their whole thing was like they saw loot that no one else could see. They'd be like, yo, that vase is really valuable. And everyone's like, dude, it's a vase. They're like, trust me, bro. I know a guy. The Antiquarians could find so much more loot while you were out. They had an eye for it. Then, of course, there's Indiana Jones. You know, he goes into these places that only some people recognize have value, and he finds, old artifacts and stuff like that, and then wants to preserve them in a museum. They belong in a museum. And the question, I think the big question here is not what is the lore of this class, because we kind of already see it. It's what the hell is this supposed to do? I don't think it's going to be like Meowth casting Payday, and it's going to generate more money for the character in combat, as funny as that would be, because Guild Wars just isn't that kind of game. So, what is it going to do? Like, what is this ability? He summons an animation of a script digging up money. What immediately does that do for the party? Maybe they get a buff of some sort? He's standing there with gun in hand, so he's in, like, his weapon's unsheathed. Bonk with bag of gold? I don't know. Maybe you do more damage based on your money. Yeah, Guild MM is going to one-shot everybody. Maybe they collect powerful artifacts they can use. But then they do that, and then what? The question is what? The script's unburying buffs? Maybe? But it can't just be as simple as boons. It's going to be a whole new class mechanic. So what the heck is this thing going to do in combat? Maybe increase crit. Let's see. Maybe like an extra skill you get on steel. Maybe. Not so long ago, Ranger pig pets had an ability called Forage, and they would dig up a random item, and you could pick it up and use it once. Glob of ectoplasm, you could crush it, and you got every boon in the game for 5 seconds. Feathers, you could throw them in the enemy's face, and it would blind them for 1 attack. Bone and sword, you could pick it up and just throw it at the enemy for 1 ranged attack. Stuff like that. Now, they did an overhaul on the pigs, and they changed them to be more dependable, so each pig gives 1 specific thing. Like, I think boar is like a bone every single time, stuff like that, so it's less RNG. Maybe this guy is going to dig up a random one-use item, and you could pick it up off the ground and, use it. One thing is, and honestly, I think this is too cool of an idea, so I don't think they're going to do this. What if it's based on the region? What if you're in Ascalon, and you use this dig up ability, and you get in a one-use item that is related to the Ascalonian War between the Char and the humans? What if you're in Maguma, and you use this, you dig up a one-use item that is related to the fight with Mordremoth? Like a piece of Calidbolg or something, and you throw it in the enemy's face. Like, basically, in each zone, it does something different, Now, I don't think they're going to do that, but I think that would be a neat possibility. It's just something, I'm brainstorming here, right? And we're just brainstorming right now. So, yeah, it's just like, what is it going to do? So, I think you find a piece of Traherne. Oh, God. So, I think that's all the ideas I have based on the names. Troubadour, the Bard, Evoker, the Elementalist, and Antiquary, the Thief, with the playing cards icon. I do not know. The Script Companion? Yeah, that's another thing. Is that Script going to be there all the time? Or is it just there for this one animation? Because if you go back to when they were all standing side by side, there's no Script there. The Firefox is there. The Script's not there. I would assume that Script only shows up as an animation for that ability, and then it leaves. I don't think it's there all the time. I do not think it's there all the time. But yeah. Okay, I think that's all I got. I think that's all my thoughts after hearing the names. So now the question is, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm on the, I think I've nailed the mark on some of these ideas, or do you think you got something, some new possibility in your head that could be completely different from everything I just came up with? As always, put it in the comment section down below, and I will fight you there. No, I'm not updating right now.